crafters, Lisa here from Fun Stuff Crafts. So glad you could join me for another Inspiration Friday. So this week I am really excited to show you a technique, and I'm going to show you it making a hot pad. But check out the baby quilt I made behind. I absolutely love how this quilt turned out, and this technique that I use to make these squares, I'm going to teach you by showing you how to do it on the hot pad. But I really want to show you how you can take it to the next level. So my girlfriend's daughter's having a little baby boy, and they told me that they were doing Tonka and trucks and construction theme. And I haven't got a sew for a little boy in a while. So I had so much fun picking out this fabric and making this quilt. And instead of going in depth on a tutorial on making a quilt, I thought, why not just show you how to make it on a hot pad, and then you can use your panels to make whatever you want. So before we get started with this week's Inspiration Friday, I've got to thank you for stopping by my channel. And hey, if you're new to my channel, make sure you click on the subscribe button and click on that bell, and YouTube should alert you each time I upload a new video. We try to do it every Friday. That's why we call it Inspiration Friday. And hey, if you've got other friends that like to sew, make sure you share this tutorial and give it a thumbs up. So give me a second. I'm going to get my camera angle changed, and we're going to get making this hot pad. I want to show you the method I'm using. It is super cool. Can't wait to share it with you. So let's get started on this project, and I want to show you how I start out. A couple of things we're going to need is we're going to need a couple different colors of fabric, and you can choose whatever you want. I actually have some scraps here. A couple weeks ago I showed you guys how to make a casserole container, and I said I wanted to make a hot pad to match it. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. So I had some scraps left over from it, and then I have a fat quarter that I thought would pick up some of this color, would be really nice. So we're going to see if I've got enough. That is one thing with this project. You can definitely use up scraps, and it is cut as you go. So the other thing I'm going to do is I like to start out with a 5-inch square, and I happen to have this 5-inch quilter's block. So I'm going to start out with that, and I'm using my rotary cutter, and you guys can see I've got my rotary mat. I've got my iron already heating up, and I am going to use a fabric pen with the disappearing ink. And then below my cutter's mat, I have got my pressing mat all ready to go. So let's get started, and I want to show you how quick and easy this project is. The first time I saw this technique, I was like, oh, I'm not quite sure where this person's going with this. I didn't quite understand how it all worked. But what I'm starting out with is 2 5-inch by 5-inch squares. Okay, that is what we're starting with. And we are going to put them right sides together, and we are going to take them over to the sewing machine, and I am going to sew all the way around, not leaving any openings whatsoever at all. So give me a second. I'm going to hop over to the sewing machine really quick and sew around. So I've sewn all the way around, no openings left whatsoever on this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do my pen, and I'm going to grab a ruler, and I just happen to have my quilting ruler, and we are going to draw a line diagonally each way. And then you're either going to use a seam ripper, or I have found that I can just actually use my scissors. I'm going to kind of take those fabrics apart, and I'm just going to fold right along that first line I did, and I'm going to clip it. And then what I'm going to do is get my scissors in there, and I'm going to cut all the way along that line. And I want to get as close to the corner as I can, and I'm just going to cut each one of these. And the fun thing about this is you kind of build it as you go. And so you can decide on what color fabrics you want to put with it, the whole bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move this out of the way just a little bit, and we're gonna get to my pressing mat, and we are going to press this out. So you will see the beginnings of our little patchwork square that we're gonna do. So I'm just gonna press that all out. And there is the first piece. Now you guys, I did, and I like to do both sides, I did do kind of what you would call a fussy cut, right? I wanted the center of my hot pad to have that Farm Sweet Farm saying on it. So there we are, we've got that. Now let's bring our mat back down. And for this first one, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna clip my edge, just the edge out. When we get to the next couple sizes, we are gonna actually measure out, but just for this one, we're just gonna clip those edges. So now we're gonna decide on what's the next color fabric that you want to add. And I think that I am going to do, I think I'm gonna do the black at the very end and maybe do that for the back. We're gonna wait and see how big this gets. So what I'm gonna do is I am just gonna cut one more piece of my fabric, and I'm gonna cut it the exact same size as this piece. So really easy. I'm just gonna lay it right down there, and I am gonna use my rotary cutter, and I am just going to cut that the same size. And we're gonna repeat the exact same steps that we did for the first one. We are going to sew it all the way around. Oops, did not do a straight line there, Lisa. Trying to do it the wrong direction that I'm used to. And what we're gonna do now is exactly like we did before. I'm gonna take right sides together, and I'm gonna go over to the sewing machine, and I'm gonna do the exact same steps. I'm gonna sew all the way around. You can see I've sewn all the way around, just like last time. You can kind of see that thread there. And you always wanna make sure that you're drawing your lines on the side you're going to cut. So you'll never draw lines on that side. And I don't suggest that you draw your lines ahead of time either. Wait and do your seam all the way and then do your lines. And Lisa just messed up on that line, so I'm gonna redo it. And you wanna make sure you're corner to corner. Really important to make sure that it lays out really nice. So I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna grab those apart, pull them apart. Now, some people like to use a seam ripper here, and you absolutely can. I just find that I can be very careful and just clip right there. Just got a tiny, tiny hole there. Now I am doing a 1/4 inch seam all the way around, so I'm just using my presser foot as my guide when I go all the way around. And I just love this way of doing it. It's just another way. And as you guys can see from the beginning, you know, I showed you that this is just not for hot pads. I thought doing a hot pad would be an easy way to show you guys the technique, but you can definitely take it to that next level, and you guys can make a quilt out of it, which I had so much fun making that construction quilt that I did for my girlfriend's daughter. Can't wait. We're going to the shower tomorrow and be giving it to her. And so see how I'm just pressing that back out. Now this time, what I'm gonna do is, for this layer, I am going to now square up my block. And what I mean by squaring up my block is I'm gonna take my ruler and I'm gonna use these parts for my measurement. So what I wanna do is I'm gonna see how far out that I can go. So I am right about 1.5 inches. So I'm measuring up on that line right there with my ruler, and I am going to square up my block. So 1.5 inches is what I want on each one. And this is what's fun. This is where, to be perfectly honest with you guys, as I do these, Each one of mine have turned out a little bit different. When I was doing the quilt, I would do 2 blocks at the same time. That way I knew my measurements were going to be the same, which worked out really nice. But now I've got that block all nice and squared up. So let's measure that. What size block am I at? I'm at a 7.5 by 7.5 inch block. So I started out with a 5 inch and now I am at 7 inches. Not big enough, I think, for my hot pad yet. So I'm going to take my fat quarter and we're going to open it up and we are going to cut out a piece from the fat quarter. Now, a lot of people will tell you to pre-wash your fabric. I have not. As you guys can see, I'm opening this right up and going to start using it. So if none of it's been pre-washed, you're good because you won't have a shrinkage issue. If some of your fabric has been pre-washed and not others have, I would definitely recommend that you pre-wash because you don't want part of your fabric to shrink. Okay, so we've got our next one, and you guessed it, you guys, we're going to do the exact same process. And then I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. Now let's square this one up, and let's see what we can do. Just about do 2 inches. Sometimes what I have to do is do 1 row and make sure I can go all the way around. And then if I have to, I can lessen it. Nope, see, I'm not going to be able to do. So I'm going to go back to, let's do 1 3/4. We'll do 1 3/4. You want to make sure you're totally squared up all the way around. And then you can determine how big do you want your hot pad? Or like I made the baby blanket, how big do I want my squares? That is exactly where you guys can get creative. So I'm going to measure what size we're at right now. And we are at, got my mat turned backwards. We are at a 9-inch square right now. So I think that I am going to do 1 more layer, 1 more going around, because I'm going to be cutting off when I put the back on. So let's see if I've got enough. Again, I'm using scrap material, you guys, so let's see if I can get enough. I don't think oh, look at that. I'm going to have enough of that red, which I think is going to be great because I'm going to use black as my back. And so I'll have 1 more side of red for my hot pad. So fun way to use up some scraps if you want. Now, my problem here is I'm not going to have 2 matching hot pads, that's for sure, because I'm definitely using up scraps here. But just to do 1, it's really fun, and it's going to match my carrier just great. So do the same thing, and then after I do this one, we're going to add the padding in the back and we're going to be done. Okay, so how cute did that turn out, you guys? I just love how this turned out. And so I'm going to do my last square up, and I am going to do it at 2 inches. So I'm going to do 2 inches, and I'm making sure I get nice and straight, and I'm using that triangle in there. So we're going to do 2 inches, and we'll measure out what we have. I'm going to grab from my stash some padding to make your hot pads. Now, I do recommend that you use either a 100% cotton batting, or you use, whoops, oh gosh, I hope I didn't cut that one. I think I just messed up. I have to measure that one again. I did, didn't I? Just barely short. Nope, I think I'm okay. Okay, so what size do I have? I have now got put that in the corner there. I've got now 11-inch by 11-inch panel. So what you guys want to do with this, you can do whatever you want. But we're going to turn this one into a hot pad. So give me a second and I'm going to grab some batting and I'll show you what next we need to do. So now you guys can do whatever you want with your panel you just made. But what I went ahead and did is I cut out a piece of the black, which I'm going to use as the backing for my hot pad. I cut out a piece of 100% cotton batting, and I cut out a piece of Insulbrite. Now Insulbrite is, you can hear it crunchy, right? And it really helps whenever you're dealing with anything with heat. So I really like using this in my hot pads. So the layering process I'm going to do is I'm going to do my panel first. Then I'm going to take my piece that is going to be my back and I'm going to lay right on top of it. Then I want to take my 100% cotton. And then I'm going to take my Insulbrite. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some clips and I am going to sew all the way around and I'm going to leave an opening. So I'm going to go ahead and just clip this so when I hop over the sewing machine, I will have it all together. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark, I don't know, let's say 4 inches as my no sew zone, okay? I'm gonna start here, back stitch, go all the way around and come back. I'll be right back. So I've sewn all the way around and I left our opening right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to clip our edges. I double check to make sure my iron is all heated up too, because I'm definitely gonna wanna give this a good press before we add a top stitch. But these hot pads are gonna turn out so, so cute. So what I want to do is I'm going to turn my hot pad right side out. And it takes a little finagling, but you can get it all the way through. I grabbed my point turner so I'd have that ready to go, but I'm going to try to poke out my corners with my fingers. Now, one thing I didn't do here is I didn't add a little tag. Some people like to have tags on their hot pads. I keep mine in the drawer, and so I don't normally put a pad on mine. So now all I'll do is I'm going to take my pointer and I'm going to be really careful around the corners there. But I want to poke that out and get a nice crisp corner. Like I say, I'm just being careful. I don't want to poke through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a top stitch. But first what we're going to do is we're just going to give this a really, really good press. And look how cute our hot pad turned out. I just love how it all looks. So I'm going to fold that in and I'm going to give it a press like that. And you know what I'm going to do here, you guys? I am going to, and I should have done it before I turned, I'm going to trim just a little bit of that off so this is easier to turn for me. That would have been a good idea to do ahead of time. Okay, so I'm just going to fold that right in like that. I'm going to give it a press and then I'm going to put a clip on there so that when we come around and give it that top stitch that I get that all in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab a clip so I won't forget where that is, because that's going to be really important that we get that in just right. And look at that. So I'm going to add a top stitch all the way around, and look how cute. I hope you enjoyed that technique on how to make a patchwork square with a little bit different twist on it. So I'm going to top stitch it and then I'll give you a close-up view and I'll show you that quilt again to give you guys some other ideas of what you could do using this technique. And here's a close-up look of that pot holder. And then here is a view of the one panel from the quilt and a close-up view of how you can use this same method to make panels for a quilt. I really hope you enjoyed this Inspiration Friday. If you did, give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and hey, don't forget to check out my blog at funstuffcrafts.com for other DIY type projects.